Hey, everybody, it's Alan Lone here at the Flagler Voice podcast studio, and this is the start of our new show called Be Your Best. I'm really excited about it. We're going to journey down nutrition, health, alternate medicine, all kinds of stuff, and educate all of us, because I need the education the most, on how to live and be healthy and be your best. Today, I have in the studio with me my co host, Antoinette.
Hello. I'm so excited about this because I think there's a lot of misinformation out there. And I think there's so many people that want to be healthy and eat healthy. And you could have the best intentions, but if you're following the wrong advice,
Yeah.
it's not going to lead you anywhere. You could do more harm than good, honestly. So we're going to go through myths or, kind of dispel things and get to
Mm-hmm.
the bottom of it and clear any misinformation out there the best we can.
And it's going to shock some people because the things, I've been into this now a whopping 14 days, and I've learned so much, the value of the food pyramid.
Or that it has no value.
Zero value, yeah. That the food pyramid is a complete lie. But who knew that? That's what we were taught in school.
Yeah.
And so I've learned that. I've learned so much. And so it's going to be an exciting journey for me, and I think it'll be an exciting journey for everybody as we
Yeah,
go. So
for sure.
most people know, because I've plastered it all over my page, that 14 days ago, I, in the evening, did a finger stick blood glucose test, and it came up to 403, where 90 is actually the high end of good, and I was super good.
I don't think it works that way, Alan.
No? Oh. Well, maybe I wasn't super good. I was super in trouble.
Yeah.
And so I started a 72-hour fast, which I ended at 70 hours because I started it at 9 o'clock at night, and I didn't want to end it at 9 o'clock at night and then eat.
Yeah. That
So
was smart.
I ended it 2 hours earlier and have been going from there. So that's where my journey started. And I'm down, I think this morning I was 109 on my glucose test. So it's
You're
a
getting
huge
there.
drop.
That's amazing.
And-
Amazing.
And although people think I'm lying,
No.
I've lost 26 pounds now in 14 days. And it's simply, well, mostly was water weight,
Yeah.
you know?
And inflammation is a lot.
Yeah.
Like people don't realize when it comes to stuff, like people think it's just calories in, calories out. And it's somewhat true, but a lot has to do with hormones and inflammation and how your body is storing. Like depending on how you eat, more water is stored in your muscles in certain diets, and others it releases it. So
And one of my issues is I'm a chocoholic. So, sweets are my thing. And
there's ways around. We'll get to those.
well, I hope so. I got to feed my habit.
Yeah, no, definitely, definitely.
But my diet has changed completely, and so that's how I got into it. So, how did you start your journey?
So again, I was probably the least likely to be healthy. I don't know if that was a category in high school, but I would have won it. But I survived my childhood on Pop-Tarts and cereal. Like I used to go through half a gallon of milk a day
Wow.
because what else you gonna have with Pop-Tarts and cereal and cookies, and that's what I ate. And then
I'm sure it's in somewhere in the food pyramid.
it was in that big bottom that you were supposed to have the most of, right?
That's right.
So, and then even like I remember I would go on dates, and I had a longtime ex who was just he was way more health conscious than I was, and he'd order like the guiltless chicken salad, and I'd be like, I'll have
The complete guilt.
yeah, I'll order guilt with the side of bacon, and and the waitress would always put his meal in front of mine, and it was just one of those. But then what happened with me, I started getting really sick, and it started with I started getting these skin sores like literally all over my body, and I was like, this is strange. So I went to a dermatologist, and they're like, I don't know what this is. Maybe it's hormonal. So they sent me to a gynecologist, which, they found another issue, and then they sent me to someone else. And I just kept getting bounced around from doctor to doctor to doctor. And I kept getting worse and worse and worse. Skin sores turned into like, I started like I'd be so sick and then throwing up every night. And at the low point, I'd wake up, I wouldn't even know who I was, where I was. I'd wake up and look at my hands and go, am I married?
Wow.
Yeah. And then I would look around the room and I'm like, I guess this is my house. And then I'd be like, oh my God, let me check if there's bedrooms if I have children. I mean, this is how far gone I was. And the low point was I was eating a banana and I was so frail and sick. Well, I'll kind of backtrack, but when I'd go to bed, I didn't even know if I'd wake up in the morning, which is such a, and then I was in so much pain, I didn't even know if I wanted to, but I was that gone. And I'm not a hypochondriac by any means, but I was a mess. And then I was eating a banana and I broke a bone in my face eating a banana.
Wow.
That's how frail I was. And I went to the hospital and they said, honestly, we're kind of scared to touch you. You've seen every specialist under the sun and you just keep getting worse and worse and worse. And they go, you probably have about two weeks to live. They go, just take the time, be with your family, get your affairs in order. There's really nothing we could do. And, that might have been an option for them, but it wasn't for me.
Sure.
So I said, well, what can I do? So they suggested I reach out to the Mayo Clinic or the National Institute of Health and pray they take me on as a clinical subject. And they go, but you're so far gone, they probably won't because it's not going to help any statistic or research, if you just pass away as they're putting together a study or something.
Right.
So I went to Yale, so I reached out to some people I knew there, and then it was one of those that they didn't know what was going on, but I just felt I was being poisoned is honestly what I felt like. And I would do so much research on the computer. I'd spend my entire day, like when I cognitively had some wherewithal,
Right.
that I just spend the entire day in front of a computer looking up every medical research paper, every like diving into all those myths and studies and finding out the flaws in the studies and all that stuff. And I started to see like how bad doctors were, and it just amazed me. So obviously I didn't die in 2 weeks.
It's been 3 weeks since then, right?
Yeah, it's a week and 5 days. So if but
We can edit.
he may have a new co-host next week. No, but it was just an amazing, amazing journey. And part of the thing, like this is just how the stupidity of some of the doctors that I ran across. Not all doctors are amazing, but you'd be really shocked. Like when you look at in this country, the major causes of death, like, cancer or heart disease, medical malpractice is extremely high on the list. More so, like people get all up in arms when there's a mass shooting. Trust me, you're more likely to be killed by your doctor than a madman
All right.
and people don't realize that. And a lot of doctors actually cause the cancer and cause the heart disease. And I think people are unaware of that. So that's, I think, some of the things we're really going to unpack.
Right. So what was the key that put you past 2 weeks?
Yeah. So what it was, I kept thinking I was being poisoned. And when I finally went to Yale, it was the most thorough. I couldn't even see a medical doctor. It was a department that dealt with toxicology of environmental contamination. But they spent like 5 hours with me and they said, you know who you need to see? And they sent me back to this guy who's actually a dermatologist. And they said, don't let, just because he's a dermatologist, he knows everything about the body. So when I walked in there, he didn't have much, like he is a 7-month waiting list. So they're like, we'll try our best to get you in there. And they got me in there like within the next day or two. And he's like, oh, I hear you have some skin sores or something. Like that's all he knew.
Mm-hmm.
And then I took off my shirt to show him. And he goes, oh my God. He goes, I could do a swab test, but I can tell you right now, you're being poisoned. And he goes, and you must eat so healthy because you should have been dead a long, long time ago by the look of,
Wow.
So it was literally, if I wasn't doing that research and eating, but part of the things I was doing was chelating my body because I thought I was being poisoned. And chelating is grabbing these toxins and pulling them out. So I
Right.
was like downing clay and all this crazy stuff. So all in all, it all started. And again, this is no medical doctor told me this is my own research, but I actually got a root canal done, and the dentist convinced me to get another root canal done. And when they take out the root, they fill it with a substance, and I was completely allergic to it.
Uh,
So it's kind of like if you're allergic to a peanut and they decide to sew a peanut inside you.
right.
So I kept doing all these elimination, like water only fasts, and nothing was helping. I kept getting worse and worse and worse. And I thought at that point I had a stalker, and I'm like, maybe he's getting in my house or poisoning my water. Like, I didn't know what was going on. So, but that's what it was. So I literally had poison stuck inside my body, and me eating the banana that broke the bone in the face was the tooth that had the root canal literally ate away the whole palate of my mouth.
Oh,
So when I finally bit into that banana for the last time, it cracked my whole palate and tooth in half. And that's finally what happened. And that's how but again, it was, then when I tried calling the dentist to find out, all of a sudden, oh, we have a new doctor and we're going to change our name. Like, they just have
ah,
no culpability. And unfortunately, that's how things are in this country. I mean, the dentists, they put mercury in fillings, which is,
well, I have a,
somebody will knock on my door we're trying to get mercury out of children's playgrounds. Okay, so it's a toxic hazard in one area of the world,
but it's
but then the
okay.
doctor's installing it in your mouth in another with gloves because he doesn't want to touch it.
Right.
Uh,
So, I have a dentist story. Uh, Years ago, I lived across the street from a dentist office, literally across the street.
uh-huh.
So, as a little kid, dutifully walk across the street and have my 6-month dental checkup every year, every 6 months. And every 6 months, I had a cavity, regardless of what I did brush, floss, mouthwash, everything I could do. And every 6 months, I had a cavity.
Mm-hmm.
So I turned 11 years old, and I go in, and I've done everything, brush like 65 times a day, everything. And I
Yeah.
go in, and, oh, you got a cavity. Now I'm thinking, there's just no way.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, how old do I have to be to refuse to allow you to fill it? And he said, well, you can do that now. I said, don't touch it.
Mhm.
I'm still waiting for that cavity.
Wow.
So about, well, it's been almost 20 years ago now.
Yeah.
I was driving down the road eating pistachio nuts,
Mm-hmm.
cracking the shell, and it dropped. I dropped it. So I reached into the bag, and I looked down, I saw it, reached in the bag, but I grabbed the nut beside it. And it
Okay.
was one of those ones that didn't split on its own.
Oh.
So I think I'm about to bite the nut, but I'm biting the whole
Whole
thing with the
shell,
shell. So
yeah.
I pop it in my mouth and split a molar in half.
Oh.
So off I go to the dentist, and they do an x-ray, and they go, you have a lot of cavity, a lot of fillings. He said, but there's no cavities under them.
Oh, wow.
So I have a mouthful of mercury and nothing there.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So someday, it costs a fortune to have all that stuff
Oh,
because
yeah.
it's toxic waste, and
Yeah.
they got to do all kinds of special stuff to take it out of you.
Yeah, it's okay to be in you, but they have to dispose of it in special
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's scary, really.
Yeah, and people don't realize, like,
No. Now
Yeah.
they don't use mercury anymore.
yeah, but I
it's
mean,
too late.
it was
I mean,
common practice. I think that's what I think most people's problem is. They're like, if my doctor told me this,
yes.
therefore it's correct. But doctors they used to do bloodletting. They used to,
Right.
spray kids with, things that are like now dangerous to crops, like
They
with
give you arsenic.
Yeah,
Yes, yeah.
they used to actually spray people, like, and people don't realize like that was proven science back in the day. So if you never question proven science, the only person you're hurting is yourself.
You're killing yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the average lifespan of a doctor isn't better than the average. You know what I mean? It's not like they're doing, I think the average doctor's wife probably reads more medical literature than the doctor itself.
Yeah.
And part of that, I don't think people realize this, like back in the 1900s, like the Rockefellers and Carnegies, were all the petrochemicals. They decided that a good industry to infiltrate was the medical.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to that, you didn't have these drugs and all this stuff. So the way they did that, it was very smart. I mean, they weren't dumb men.
Right.
So they said what they're going to do is they're going to make a very large donation to the medical school. So we're going to donate $1 million, let's say. But the only thing we're going to do is we want to have someone from our company on the board to make sure that our money's used properly.
Mm-hmm.
And what medical? Oh, we get $1 million. Of course, you can make sure, they're thinking so it's not embezzled, whatever.
Right.
And all of a sudden, any studies on food, nutrition are out of the curriculum, and it's all drugs, petrochemicals and this and this. And they started, if you were anything holistic, I mean, nowadays you have holistic doctors, and even they're still kind of persecuted, like today's day and age. We could another episode, but they were actually like rounded up, jailed, institutions, like they were considered like voodoo doctors or quacks. And if you weren't part of these, drug instructed schools, you weren't considered a real doctor and therefore could not practice medicine.
Yeah.
So in today's day and age, what people consider the medical industry, it wasn't like that 100 years ago or 150 years. Like, it was different. It was very, very different.
And the home remedies are considered, witch doctor stuff and everything. Well, they actually worked.
Yeah.
So, I had high blood pressure in my 30s. So I go to my local doctor, who, by the way, I despise, and you know who I'm talking about. And he put me on blood pressure medication, and it made me cough, and it was terrible stuff. So we'll switch it, put you on another medication. Well, it wasn't lowering my blood pressure. I was taking these pills, and it was like, I'm just eating M&Ms. It's not doing anything. So I said to myself, well, why do I have high blood pressure? And he said, well, we may never know why you have it. He said, in my entire practice, I've only been able to figure it out on one patient why they had high blood pressure. I said, you don't just all of a sudden develop high blood pressure. There's a reason behind it.
Yeah, it's a symptom. Find the cause.
Fine. Well, because you're an idiot. Five. I ended up taking 5 different blood pressure medications by the time it's done, and none of them worked. So I threw them out the window. That was the end of that. And I was just going to whatever, I got high blood pressure. I hear this other doctor on the radio many years later, and his office is over in Orlando. And he's like that doctor that looked at you, and said,
immediately. Yeah.
Right. So I go over to this doctor. All I'm thinking is high blood pressure, right? I go over there, and I did all the little medical thing, but he didn't read the file. So I go and I sit down in front of him, and he looks at me, and he says, okay, other than Hashimoto's disease, high blood pressure, a little bit of obesity, and pre-diabetes, why are you here to see me? And I said, what? I don't know about all these other things. How are you seeing this? He said, well, I can tell by the color of your skin under your eyes.
Yeah.
But we're going to do all the tests to figure it out. So we do all the tests, and he was right on every single one of them.
Yeah.
Now, he was originally, he was a transplant surgeon up at Mayo. He did all these things. Then he opens his own practice. I mean, this guy is like, he's so smart, it's difficult for him to relate to,
the average person.
The average person,
Yeah.
So, but he tries his best. He's an
Yeah.
excellent doctor, and in my opinion, and he also compounds his own vitamins
supplements
and
and
all the
stuff?
supplements. He
Oh, wow.
compounds them all himself, and then he does the assays on them. He has his own mass spectra. I forget what it is. Boy, that's terrible. I should know. The
Mass
spectrograph.
spectrometer.
Mass spectrometer. Yeah. So he can do his own assays, do his own. So he has the top notch of everything, and I started getting better and better and better.
Mm-hmm.
And then I stopped because I'm feeling great now. Everything's better. Blood pressure's normal. Everything's normal. I'm good.
Yeah.
I don't need this stuff anymore. So then I go to another doctor here. That stopped about 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I went to another doctor here recently. A great doctor. He's the same kind of guy. But this guy's like 80 years old. His original master's was in chemistry, and then he switched to being a MD,
Mm-hmm.
and so he knows the chemicals in the pills and all this stuff. But still, I go in there, and I had at that point like 200 in my glucose level.
Okay.
And he said, "Oh, we got to get this down. We can start you on insulin." I said, No. I don't want insulin. I don't want to become insulin dependent. Is there something else? And so he prescribed Ozempic. And for all you people on Ozempic, careful. What are the long-term effects of Ozempic?
Yeah.
Don't know. So anyway, started me on Ozempic, and I'm thinking none the wiser. And I lost weight, and my blood sugar and everything went down, but I don't have insurance. So Ozempic is $1,000 a month.
Wow. I didn't realize it was that high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so like I had like 2 or 3 months of free samples, and that was the end of that because
Yeah.
I'm not spending $1,000. But I got everything down, and we were eating, in my mind, relatively healthy. But then the other day, 14 days ago, I took the test again, and now I'm up at 403, and no.
Wow. Yeah.
So doctors the entire time are pushing me in different directions.
Yeah.
The doctor out in Orlando did give me supplements for it, and had I been smart enough to stick with them, I probably would have been okay, but I didn't change my diet. And that's where the key was.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we come all the way up to now, 14 days ago, I'm completely out of control with my glucose levels, and I had to do stuff. So I agree. Alternative medicine, which really is an alternative because it was the beginning. So really, pharmaceutical and doctor medicine today is the alternate medicine.
Yeah.
And the original stuff that's today called alternate medicine is actually primary medicine.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's that famous saying, let food be thy medicine, which was like Hippocrates or whatever. It's a famous quote, but it was so spot on. How people got away from that is beyond me. Like what I say to people all the time, like people go, oh, well, everything in moderation. Really? Rat poisoning in moderation or,
Yeah.
Arsenic in moderation. Like if it's bad for you, it's bad for you. It's not like, I'll just eat less of it. No, like I'm a big believer that it's either harming you or it's making you healthier. There's no middle ground. It's
Right.
if it's full of nutrients and things, but if it has things that you have any sort of bad side effect to that's causing inflammation, then it's not good for you. Like I'm sure if you dig deep, like even Hitler, he was a great painter. Was he a good person? No. Like,
Right.
You know what I mean? Like you take the worst thing on the planet and there'll be some aspect to it that you could promote as a good thing that doesn't make it healthy.
Right.
And that's what a lot of these frankenfoods do. Like, oh, well, it has this. Big deal. If it has if it has one terrible thing, you shouldn't have it. Or,
Right.
and everybody's different. So something that might affect me badly might not affect somebody else. So be also cognizant of how your body reacts to certain things. I mean, there might be a health, like shellfish, for example. There's nothing wrong with shellfish, but if you have like an iodine
Right.
allergy, somebody could just walk by and the smell of it they can pass out. So be cognizant of what your individual preferences are, but also on the healthy to not healthy spectrum too, you know?
And along the same lines of exactly what you just said, I was listening to a radio show. Yes, radio. And, and there was a couple of doctors on there, and we're hoping to have them come in as guests on this show.
Awesome.
But it's a couple, and the wife said something that really just triggered in me. She said, and I'm not triggering that way. She said, that she has patients that come in, and she does a lot of holistic medicine and that type of thing, nutrition and so forth. She has patients that come in and they say, well, I only have one soda a day, and she's trying to get everybody off soda and
Yeah.
stuff like that, which I'm actually off soda too. I was drinking it. Uh, and she said, they would say, well, I only have one. And she said, okay, well, I'll just come by your house every day and only put one glass of water in your gas tank of your car. And let's see how it works over time.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing as like you were just saying.
Yeah.
It's people don't realize. People
Yeah.
don't realize just a little bit can cause a lot of damage.
Yeah. Because, I mean, as humans, we run on what we eat and drink. As much as you want to think like, oh, it's just yummy or it's this is our fuel. Without it, we die.
Right.
It's our only source of fuel. So if you start incorporating that one, water in our tank a gallon, we're not going to be running too well. So,
right. Yeah,
and
it's true.
It's funny because too, with all these medicines and stuff, I know I lost my dad recently. So he lived to 96. And it was funny because like anytime I would bring him to doctors beforehand, they're like, oh, well, what prescriptions is he taking? And I'm like, nothing. And they were shocked, like, well, he's 90 what? And he's not taking a prescription? Like, how is that possible? And the point is, like, if there's something wrong with you, your body's very smart. It's not looking to harm you. It's giving you a signal that there is something wrong in your diet, in your environment, maybe in your sleeping pattern, maybe in your stress level. There is something wrong in how you're living your life that is causing harm. And if your body's creating something, it's doing that to help preserve itself.
Right.
So even something like cancer cells are unique in that they could proliferate and live without oxygen. So if they're doing something where it's not, like there is a reason that the body does certain things, or with these autoimmune system, there's a reason why the body starts attacking itself, because there's something that you're putting in your body that requires attacking, and it's just, it's so the whole point is most doctors today, they treat the symptoms and they
Right.
could not care less about the cause.
Right. It's always treating the symptoms. And that's what I was going through with the blood pressure and all of that. It was
Yeah.
just treating the symptoms. Come to find out, the blood pressure issue with me was thyroid issue. It was deregulating everything.
Uh-huh.
And but this diet is straightening that out as well. So,
Yeah.
I'm not sure I actually have an autoimmune Hashimoto's disease in my thyroid. I think I had a hand-to-mouth.
Yeah. I think that's the
issue.
problem with most things. And just to go back to like what you were saying with it made me think of this with the dentist and the finding cavities. My mom's friend went to her doctor, and sure enough, he's like, oh, you have cancer, and she went, what? You are out of your freaking mind. She goes, I'm never going to you again. I feel great. You're out of your mind. She left, never went to another doctor, and lived another like 40, 50 years.
Yeah.
So like people, one of the tactics they do when you get diagnosed with something, doctors want to start you on something like ASAP. Oh my God, you have to go. Doctors in this country are only allowed, otherwise they'll get their medical license yanked, to, like, if you have cancer, to recommend chemo, radiation, or surgery. They can't recommend, oh, well, you should, stop eating yodels and, diet soda every day. Like they can't tell you to do that.
Right.
I mean, they can, but they're at risk of, losing their license. And we could go into other things of people that were practicing holistic medicine that, if they were treating cancer patients, they got all run out of the country.
Yeah.
So you got to be very, very careful with, don't let anyone ever pressure you into something. And one thing that shocked me when I learned this was in this country. So let's say I had a child. Thank God I don't. But but I don't. But if I had a child, and let's say I took him to the doctor and they're like, oh, your child has leukemia, we recommend, you start chemotherapy or whatever. And I go, oh, I'm just going to get a couple opinions to see. I want to make sure what's the best course of action for my child. Of course, as a parent, you're going to want to do what's best for your
Right.
child. Well, if you have good insurance and whatever, the doctor can actually make that child a ward of the state and actually take it out of your possession and force. When I learned this, I was floored. So if you think you're going to, like, it's scary.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen actual cases where they show up with like a court order at like 2 a.m. and forcibly remove a child and make them go through chemotherapy, which is scary,
Yeah.
scary, you
Yeah.
know? And it's, even like, like I'm not going to name any actual company names, but if let's say you're in if you're in a taking donations to cure cancer, put it that way, and that's your whole mission, I can assure you there is no business on the planet that's in business to put itself out of business.
Right. Right.
So think about that, of where you're putting your money, because they're not in business to cure anything that they're in business for. I mean, it's, when I checked the numbers, this was years and years ago, medical was like a $4 trillion a year industry. I'm sure by now those numbers are antiquated,
right. It's triple.
but it's a big money maker. And there's industries in there that kill people that have knowledge in high influential places to keep it away. I mean, there's doctors that have all of a sudden mysteriously, died and whatever, but the best thing is, don't put your health in anyone else's hands but your own.
Right.
Do your research. I mean, I'm not telling you to believe me. Don't believe that. Do your research. We're here to shed light on things that we know are wrong, or we've researched. Do your own
Experience.
exactly, or
Yeah.
experience for ourselves. If there's anything that you want us to look in deeper, comment,
Yeah.
by all means. I have a wealth of knowledge. Alan's been going through, like, we're more than happy to dig down anything. This is a journey where we want to help people get healthier.
Well,
And that's it. We're not selling anything.
Yeah,
We have
no.
no ulterior motive. I would want nothing more than everybody live a happy, healthy life as long as they can.
That's what it's all about. That's
Yeah.
what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
And you do. I mean, in conversations I've had with you, you're like an encyclopedia of this knowledge, and I'm like a 2-page paperback. So, but we're getting there. We're getting there, and along this journey, I hope we can educate other people and maybe help somebody along the way.
Yeah, for sure.
We're not giving any medical advice, nothing. Like you said, I hate to say check with your doctor, but for liability reasons,
Yeah.
check with your doctor and
Yeah.
and make sure you're on a healthy path.
Yeah,
Research.
It's
is what
one of
you need.
those, it's funny because they do the medical disclaimer, of, check with your doctor. We're not giving whatever. But, I would say check with your doctor. Like, if you're going to eat healthier and you feel like you need to check with your doctor, go ahead. Do you call your doctor when you're going to pound down a box full of donuts, or you're going
Right.
to, if that's you and you're going to check with your doctor, all power to you, but I think it's just, in the end, do what's right by you and
Yeah.
follow your gut. If something sounds wrong or whatever, I mean, I know, like, a lot of times some of the stuff we'll say sounds wrong.
Right.
And it might, because everything you heard in your head has been opposite, like fat is bad,
Yeah.
like this
Yeah.
is just ridiculous, and we'll get to all that. But, make sure if it's wrong in your heart and your gut, it's different than your head trying to rationalize why something's wrong. That's a totally different.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And my diet has changed, and I am eating things that theoretically are bad, but
you're getting healthier.
But I'm getting healthier. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there is a difference in it. So,
Yeah.
well, everybody, we're just about. No, we are out of time. So, thank you for joining us today. We'll see you next week.
Yeah, I had fun. Hopefully you did too, and looking forward to this journey together.
Always.
Yes.
Bye.